Good evening. It is 6:30. Members of council are assembled when you're ready to begin.
Okay, thank you, Don. Good evening, everyone. I'd like to call to order this committee of the whole meeting of the Council of the Town of Saugeen Shores and welcome all members of the public who are with us this evening in the chambers, everyone watching via the live stream, and of course, all members of the committee. Glad everybody's with us. Second item on the agenda is the land acknowledgement, and I'll read that this evening. We acknowledge that we are meeting on the traditional lands and treaty territory of the Saugeen Ojibwe Nation, which consists of the Chippewas of Saugeen and the Chippewas of Nawash Unceded First Nation. We understand this land holds immense significance to the people of the Saugeen Ojibwe Nation. We appreciate those who live and work alongside us today and who continue the traditions of their ancestors as stewards of the land we are privileged to inhabit. We thank them for the contributions they have made in both caring for the land and in shaping this community. We commit to truth and reconciliation, to acknowledging the truth about what happened to Indigenous peoples because of colonization, and to reconciliation, which begins with each and every one of us. As a local government and public organization, we are dedicated to learning about Indigenous culture, to fostering a better relationship with First Nations and their people, and we commit ourselves to actions that move us forward on a path to healing along with the Saugeen Ojibwe Nation. Third item on the agenda is disclosures of pecuniary interest. Ask any member if you have one of those to declare at this time. Seeing none, of course, you can do that anytime if you need to. I don't believe we have any open forum requests this evening. No? Okay, no open forum requests. So that moves us on to delegations, and we have 3 delegations this evening. I'll just remind all of our delegations that council has allotted 10 minutes for each of our delegations, so we'd appreciate it if you'd hang closely to that timeline for us. And with that, we'll open things up to our first delegation, which is supposed to be from Laura Molson here on the SVCA draft budget, but I see Eric Downing, who I believe is the acting General Manager, Secretary Treasurer of the Conservation Authority. So welcome, Eric. It's nice to see you. And when you're ready, the floor is yours. Don't forget to push your button on the thing and liven your mic up. There you go.
Thank you, Your Worship, Deputy Mayor and members of council for having me. Yes, I'm the acting General Manager of the Saugeen Valley Conservation Authority since about July. My name is Eric Downing. And yes, I'm not Laura Molson, as His Worship just indicated, as you might have assumed, off sick today. So I will be able to field any questions, and I will work my way through the items in front of you in your agenda with regards to the 2024 SVCA budget. So enclosed is the draft budget, and it is indicated as draft here and throughout the document in front of you, as it was written on October 27th. But as you will note at the second to last paragraph, on November 30th, we were to have another meeting about this, and indeed the authority did approve the budget at that November 30th meeting. So we're not seeking any motions or bylaws from council today. It is for information's sake that I present this to you as we have proceeded through our budget process. So enclosed is that 2024 budget then of the Saugeen Valley Conservation Authority. Saugeen Valley Conservation Authority being a conservation entity that is governed by provincial legislation, but governed locally by our board of directors, of course, appointed by our member municipalities in the jurisdiction of the Saugeen River watershed, being approximately a jurisdiction stretching from Markdale to Point Clark, Saugeen Shores to Dundalk. The 2024 draft budget was a challenging one. We are in the midst of a CA Act change, of course, and a CA Act pretty significant restructuring, whereby the provincial government is modifying the Conservation Authorities Act in a number of ways. Predominantly, and the most obvious one is the restructuring of the core functions of CAs into what we would call quite familiar to CAs, being their core functions, being flood warning, development review, our parks, our lands. But the current CA Act does work to sort of factor those off and segregate those a little bit more clearly. And then provide options for municipalities to opt in or out of certain other services. So in any case, in our review of this new changes, indeed it was confirmed that as a rural CA, much of our core functions were and still are category 1 and still are core and central to the work of a conservation authority. And it actually did in part lead to some increases in our requested municipal levies. Because many of our parks, for instance, that we didn't necessarily call upon to have support of municipal levy, were clarified by the provincial government to indeed be something that ought to and can and should ask for levy support from, which was interesting and has led to some of the increases. The $216,000 increase in 2024 is not, of course, only borne by Town of Saugeen Shores. There is a breakdown later in your package that indicates how much Town of Saugeen Shores is responsible for. But it was also supporting all of the changes that the CA Act is requiring of the Conservation Authority for next year, for 2024, many deliverables that we have to hit, that we have to achieve, that of course are going to take staff time, take authority resources, whereby we're all busy already, of course, and therein are some incurred costs from that, from those changes, such as asset management planning, such as managing, well, we have to come up with an ice management plan, which is a first for RCA, while of course taking stock of all of our flood control structures and erosion structures. So bringing some challenges and being reflected in the budget. This budget that you do see in front of you is the second go at that. At this budget, staff had prepared initially a budget that the authority considered and did send staff back to the drawing board to be a little bit more fiscally responsible with. And we were successful with that and do bring that budget forward here and ultimately did get approval. One other component, noteful in the third to last paragraph of the letter supporting my presentation is that the Conservation Authority's development review fees were frozen for 2023. And we understand that they're not frozen for 2024. And there are some increases proposed there in support of the levy request that you see in front of you here. In the event that our fees do end up being frozen in 2024, we ought to know and hope we would know by now. We haven't heard anything that they will be frozen, but we would revisit this process and have to revisit our expense lines and rethink the budget, because it does contribute and does assist this overall balance sheet quite significantly. I just highlight that that news might come late, because last year the news of that freeze was proposed on December 28th. And it took effect January 1st, which brought some challenges for our budget process, of course. So that being said, thank you so much for having me. And I am aware of the ins and outs of starting in this position just as the budget process started. I would have liked to, again, to have Laura here to support me as my finance manager in the specific questions that might come. But thank you so much for the opportunity to present.
Yeah, well, thank you, Eric. Appreciate your time. Are there questions or comments from members of the committee? Councillor Mayette.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and through you. Thanks, Eric, for taking time to come out here today and present this to us. We've all had an opportunity to look it over the past couple of days, and I'd just like to attest that the board did in fact go through this budget with a fairly fine-tooth comb and found efficiencies where possible. But with all the uncertainties that are hanging around us and the legislative changes that are either enacted or looming, it is a challenging time for not just the Saugeen Valley Conservation Authority, but all conservation authorities and indeed all municipal governments. There's financial challenges and fiscal challenges that they're all facing, and I think that the budget that is being presented here today is a fair one and represents the good work that the Saugeen Valley Conservation Authority does. And I'd like to thank you, Eric, and your staff for coming up with it. And I encourage council to take it seriously and accept it. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. We'll get the Vice Deputy Mayor.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. And it was really just a comment. Hello, Eric, and just really a comment, Eric, to congratulate you, Eric, on your acting manager role. And had an opportunity to serve on the Conservation Board for a few years, and I always really respected and admired the work that you did. And you couldn't have picked a better guy to step in as the acting manager. And I know you have to maneuver your way through a lot of these changes, and you're the right guy to do it. So I just want to again thank you for all the great work you do, Eric.
Thank you. Further comments? Councillor Dubinsky.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you for the presentation. You mentioned fee increases. They were frozen in 2023. And do you hope to increase those in 2024? And if so, by how much? Percentage-wise?
Through you. Thank you for the question. And for 2022, the fees that we're speaking of here are only to do with our development and permitting fees, which is our permitting and shoreline review and that type of thing. So just in that vein, they were frozen for 2023. It just so happens in 2022, we didn't know that freeze was coming. We had actually had a fee review business, economists review our review fees relative to surrounding CAs, the services we're offering, to indicate how close to or far from cost recovery we were with those fees, specific permit fee, zoning amendment fee, etc. And we were shown, not too much surprise, to be very far out of full cost recovery with those review fees. That meaning the levy was supplementing the development charges that we were currently charging. And so this review process did indicate that we could increase our fees in some instances of a fairly, a notable percentage, and if you were interested in cost recovery, which would also bring along our ability to have more staff, more review ability, and bring greater speed of review. A similar process was done at Grey Sauble. Every CA around us has done similar. So it did propose increases to the fees, and that got graciously into our hands the moment we heard that there was a freeze. So we couldn't do anything about it. At the same time, we would have seen probably into 2023 about a 7% cost of living increase to those fees, which was also frozen. So in any case, there is some increases due. Our board did conclude from those two components, and there are fees increases proposed. But we are cognizant that there is a housing shortage and a housing affordability component to our component of the development review. And we were mindful of that and did not implement the full 100% cost recovery recommendation of the economist review. We are only doing a 50% review proposed into 2024. So if I don't have the fee schedule with me or as a part of this package, but specifically a permanent amendment fee or a permanent application fee for a standard, house, for instance, I think it would be in the neighborhood of, currently that would be an $850 permit. It would go to $900,000 or something like that. So there's an increase, but we are making sure that we're not doing so out of the blue and not consistent with the surrounding conservation authorities. Grey Sauble, for instance, did all this the year before. They'd increase their fees 100% the year before, and we would still be at or below their rate. So we still would be competitive locally in our review.
Okay, thank you very much. That answers it quite nicely. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you. Are there any further questions? The Deputy Mayor.
Thank you. I just wanted to comment about the day camp program, which I believe is just completely disappearing because it doesn't appear to have any budgetary support anymore. Just an observation that it was a great program. There were kids from Saugeen Shores that participated in that program, and Nature Nancy, as they called Nancy, who ran that program, did an amazing job over the years. I know she's retired, I believe now, but sad that that's disappeared. Good to see though that there's still some public education and awareness funding in there. So hopefully that means you'll still be able to be out and about at community events, in particular those that maybe families are involved with, because I think the more children get exposed to the kinds of things that go on in nature in meaningful ways, the better served we are for the future in terms of taking care of nature. But please just know that I personally really appreciated the programming. And again, the kids that I know that went to those day camps over the last couple of years, they very much enjoyed their time at Sulphur Spring. Thank you. Thank
you. Anything else? As a comment myself, I guess, Eric, I understand there have been a lot of changes to the conservation authorities and a lot of things that the authority has been contending with in these budgets. Nevertheless, I was a little bit surprised to see the general levy come in with a 10% increase, considering the fact that part of it's been parceled off to be cost apportioned, right? So you've taken some of the general levy programs and really our increase is pushing $70,000, right? And like 60s, I guess, yeah, $68,000. So you've taken some of that off, plus by provincial mandate, the amount of things that you're allowed to do has been reduced, right? Like you are no longer permitted to provide comments on or to advise municipalities on planning matters. So the Conservation Authority is doing fewer things, parceled off part of its general levy obligations into a totally separate fund, which we're paying for directly, and yet still the general levy increased by 10%, which is well above the rate of inflation. So like, what is the big picture that drives that? Like, I get, so you've had frozen fees. I assume we're offsetting the cost of planning and regulations to some extent. Is there some big ticket item that would cause a 10% increase to the general levy under those circumstances?
Thank you for the question. And through you, yeah, I think there's a lot of deliverables for 2024 that are requirements of the Conservation Authorities Act that wouldn't have been things we would be tackling or spending money on if not for that direction and changes. Yeah, there's components of it that you are well aware of, that assessment can affect one municipality more than another. I think Saugeen Shores is in a bit of that as well, with an increasing assessment relative to your surrounding municipalities. But yeah, I think the preparation of and for the resources necessary for next year, with additional staff resources having to come online to even have the ability to meet those challenges and requirements under the CA Act is really driving this increase. And talking it over with my finance manager Laura, we're hopeful that this is sort of that correction because of the CA Act changes this year, and it won't be anywhere near that type of a repeating pattern coming forward. Not our interest, certainly.
Yeah, and that was going to be my question. So I'm glad you answered it. I'm glad to hear that maybe this is a correction that we won't see in the future. I certainly hope it isn't, because we can't sustain 10% increases year over year. It's going to become a real problem real fast if we keep seeing that. Anyway, thanks very much for the presentation, Eric. We appreciate your time, and thanks for driving all the way up here. Hope you have a safe drive home. Okay. So now we'll move on to our next delegation, which is from Dr. Sabrina Saunders. And Dr. Saunders is here to talk to us about palliative care social worker pilot program with Grey Bruce Hospice. And 10 minutes, Ms. Saunders, or Dr. Saunders, and the floor is yours.
Thank you so much. All right, we have our presentation up. My name is Dr. Sabrina Saunders. I am the new executive director at Grey Bruce Hospice. I've been with the organization for about 4 years as a volunteer, and just came on as the executive director in end of September. So I just want to talk for a minute about Grey Bruce Hospice and the types of things that we're doing. Hospices really are understood by many people who have experienced what the hospice has to offer, that family ability, the ability to bring someone in and change back that relationship. So if you are a caregiver, you stop being a daughter, you stop being a wife, you stop being a husband. And coming into hospice is something that we give back, that family experience. So I wanted to talk a bit about what hospice is able to do and where some of our shortfalls are, and a pilot program that we are looking to do at this point. Maybe you can advance for me. Doesn't want to turn on here. There we go. So when we're at hospice, we have many, many celebrations, and this is just a great picture that we just wanted to show. This is a gentleman who was not there to die. He was there to continue living, and this is something that happens on a regular basis in our hospice. Family members come from all over. The community comes together, the actual organization comes together, and you can see by the vision, it really is about community supporting community to live well with dying. On our next slide, we had in 2022, 187 residents that were served at Grey Bruce Hospice. What's important to know is that for, you can go to the next slide, every person who is in-house, we have about 5 people who are touched in the community. So that's nearly 1,000 people that were touched. Right here in your community, there was about 15 residents over the year, which is, when we think of our 5 people, pretty close to 190 people of your community that directly had an impact with the Grey Bruce Hospice. So next slide, please. So that is where we have our our Bruce County and our town here of the 15. Next slide. So one of the things that we talk about when we're looking at celebrations and stories, really is about how we can bring people together. And one of the issues that we're having right now is looking, as everybody knows, social worker shortage in our health unit area. So when we're bringing somebody in, we hope that they have dealt with final affairs. Doesn't always happen. Sometimes you get someone who has children and you've tried to do everything you can, but there is no family. You went into a shelter at one point, you moved away from an abusive spouse. The only people who are trying to now take the children when you know that you're going to die would be that family. And that's something that you're trying to protect against. These are things that you see regularly. Community members who have a good relationship with part of their family, but that sort of dying wish is that you want to be able to reconnect with the son or the daughter that you haven't seen in 20 years. These are things that we are working on a daily basis at hospice. And what we can't do is try to do it in the last days and hours. We need to do this over the weeks and months and even years of palliative care that a person has. And these are the types of pieces that we can do with Grey Bruce Hospice if we actually are bringing social workers in. So we actually have some great stories that are on there. On the bottom, my favorite is one that we're doing right now with our Christmas campaign is Crystal. And it's at the bottom. It's kind of hard to see there, but there's a mold that they had just making. So it's her son, who is 8 at the time, and her husband were able to put their hands together and then put it into a mold so that forever this young boy is going to grow up being able to hold his mom's hand. Really an important thing that you do, something that our caregivers are working quite regularly to achieve. Some of our alternate and complementary therapies that we bring in are also tied into this. You'd be surprised, but you put a puppy in a bed with somebody and, you know, everybody feels happier when that happens. We actually have a litter of Angora kittens that are coming on Thursday. So if anybody's needing a little pick-me-up, there you go. So next slide. What we're trying to do right now is to build a foundation for our hospice. They have become registered. They're in the process of their CRA status. We're figuring it's going to be about 3 years before they're actually up and running and able to support different areas. One of the big asks that we put forward to them was our social worker program. So what we're looking to do at this point is simply bridge the 3 years. We're asking municipalities and our counties to be able to contribute up to $3,000 a year for the 3 years, which gets us to the point of having a social worker that would be on staff to help people with all of those end of life legal and relationship type pieces that can't always happen in-house in those last days. Anyone who's been working with our health unit knows that social workers are at a premium. It's very difficult to get them in. And even more important is they have to have a true understanding of palliative care and the type of programs that we're dealing with. So bringing somebody in on staff as a hire that we'll be able to keep as a permanent position is important because we have to train them. Nobody comes with this knowledge. So we want to make sure that we're not just offering a contract, but a permanent position. And by working with our various municipalities, we know we'll be able to achieve that 3-year gap. So that's what we're looking for. If you have questions, I know it's different than the original letter. As I said, I'm the new person, so I did make some changes after things got started back in July from our predecessor.
Well, thank you very much, Dr. Saunders. And just I'll open it up to questions in a moment, but just as a point of process, the way council will handle this is we receive your request. You've made a request for a financial request. And so we'll refer that to our staff. And then at some point in the next while, they'll come to us with a report and some recommendations on that. Okay. So for this evening, we'll ask if there's any questions or comments about the delegation. The Vice Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, Dr. Saunders. And just a couple of comments and a couple of questions. I guess first of all, the contribution that the Chapman family made to the Chapman House several years back was really, truly remarkable. And what they do for Markdale and for the whole county and now the Chapman House is really remarkable. So thank you to the Chapmans and thank you to yourself and staff for the great job you do over there. It's just a remarkable, facility. And I'm just wondering if you could answer for me, what would the total budget be a 12-month operation with all your nursing staff and doctors and all of your care staff? Is it $1 million, $2 million, $3 million? What is your operating budget?
Certainly through you, Mr. Mayor. We're right about $2.4 million. Just over 1 million of that is coming in from ministry funding through the LINs, and the rest is what we're doing through fundraising and other efforts.
Right. And Dr. Sun, do you have success with bequests and donations still coming in? I mean, I imagine from families, the last to die, people have left us some. There's probably a lot of generosity. People believe in the Chapman House. Have you been successful with bequests?
Oh, most definitely. Bequests, whether it be cash or property or securities, we're regularly dealing with those. Campaigns and donations like we're doing right now with our end of year campaign. We've had those going in. We'll do the hike coming up in May. So Hike for Hospice is one of the big events for operational fundraising of hospices across Canada.
Thank you for that. And I guess my comment, 935 people you served, in 2020, 2023 is quite fascinating. And 365 days in a year, that's almost what three per day almost. And it's really quite remarkable the work your staff do. And I guess my argument would be, with $3,000 per year, $2.4 million budget, and $3,000 per year for 3 years, $9,000 is a pretty small amount. I understand I read your report that 15 of those residents, 15 of those was 15 from last to die, came from Saugeen Shores. So I just think it's a pretty small amount. So I hope we'll see what the staff come back with a recommendation, but I hope that it comes back favorable. But thanks again for the great work you do. Really, it's remarkable.
Thank you so much. It's our honor to do the work that we do.
Thank you. So I got Councillor Mayette next.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you, thank you, Dr. Sabrina, for coming out and explaining your operation. My question is, when I think of hospice in our area, we think of the Huron Shores Hospice down the road here because it's closer. And but as you indicated, there are certain people from Saugeen Shores, patients who have taken up the facilities at Chapman House, which is a wonderful place, I might add. My question is, when a person progresses through the palliative care process and they get to the point where hospice is warranted, how does the person get dispatched between one or the other of those two facilities? And is it strictly on availability, or is there some other protocols?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. We believe very strongly that more hospice beds in our communities is a great thing. So we're always trying to work together on that end. In part, I would say it's a choice. You can say where you would like to be, and that is always going to be considered by whomever is working on placements. But the reality is, us having 8 beds versus someone else having 4 or 6 or 2, we do tend to get the majority of the cases. And it really is just a case of when it's open and when you need it. So it's kind of a hard thing that you can't schedule that in. Anybody who is 3 months, has an expectancy of 3 months or less, qualifies for any of the hospices. But most people choose to stay at home as long as they can. So we tend to have people that are coming in, a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks. I do recommend more time is better. 2 weeks seems to be a really good amount, because if it's less than that, you may certainly have a nice place, but you're not having the ability to access all of the services that a hospice can provide, and not just ours, but all of the hospices. So really it is a case of what's available at the time being layered with what your first and second choices would be.
Okay, further comments or questions? Well, thanks again. Oh, do you have one? Councillor Stack.
Thank you. Just as a general comment, so my friend recently spent time at the hospice, and so I just taking the opportunity to thank you for the experience you had. We were able to do a walk and a whole event shortly before she passed, and I think it really made a difference for her family and friends. So since you're here, I thought it would be a great opportunity to thank you and the entire staff for that I think made a big difference in her last days. And I just think the work's remarkable and difficult work. And I expect very rewarding. And so, I would support the funding. I think it's incredibly valuable. And in a smaller community where access to those resources can be limited, I think a facility like yours is incredible and should be sort of funded as best we can.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you for that. And I think my colleagues have said it, and I'll say it again. Thank you so much for coming in tonight and for all that you do. And please pass along our thanks to your staff for all the work that they do, making the end of life better for folks who are in your care, and for the families and for their families. I know, having experienced some hospice care myself, my family over the years, I know how critical that service is, and how valuable it is, and how great the work that you do is. So thank you for that work. And we're going to be getting a report back probably in the relatively near future. And so we'll have an answer for you then.
Wonderful. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Have a good evening. Okay, third and finally, we have Dave Bertrand here, and he's here to talk to us about Winterama funding request on behalf of the Rotary Clubs of Port Elgin and Southampton. Mr. Bertrand, the floor is yours. Don't forget to push the button on your mic there. There you go.
Thank you, Mayor Luke and Council. Yes, I'm Dave Bertrand. I'm with the Winterama Committee, 2023 committee. It's a combination of Rotary Clubs that run it. And I'm just going to tell you a little bit about what Winterama is, for those of you who may not know, what our goals are for this year and our request. Should be well under 10 minutes. So Winterama, we try in the last few years, COVID kind of changed the way we did Winterama. And we are now kind of having kids do things through the month rather than just having a couple of big events. And last year was fairly successful. We had a kilometer challenge, which we've done for the last couple of years, and the kids do different winter activities and log kilometers doing it, and track those kilometers school by school, class by class, and by individual. We had a total of 1,260 students participate last year across 8 schools in our area. We gave out medals last year, and we had 331 gold, 87 silver, and 86 bronze medals awarded. We were able to distribute top class awards, which were activity bins. The idea of Winterama in the last few years in particular is getting kids active at a time when it's sometimes hard to be active, and posing challenges to them. We're trying to expand it a little bit this year and involve adults as well. We had a few adults involved last year. And NPX, which is Nuclear Promise X, has designed last year a really sharp website for us so the kids can log their kilometers from home or at school. We raised, and Winterama has always been for the last 20 some years, a way for students to raise money for their schools. And since COVID, we changed the way we do things in that 100% of the money that students raise goes back to their schools. We do, as clubs, get money to offset our costs for Winterama, but the money the kids raise goes back to their schools. And last year they were able to raise over $10,000 for their 8 schools. Some schools doing better than others. We've had a lot of support from companies and individuals in our community. They've been wonderful. And one of our, our plea to you is a fairly modest one. We would like to get back to, we have a Winterama skate here and at Shallow Lake. And since COVID has ended, we'd like to get back to having a little bit of a Winterama party as part of that. And our plea was whether we could possibly get the Rotary Room for free this year. We have it in the budget to pay for the ice like we have in past years. We were wondering if the council would be willing to donate the cost of the Rotary Room to help defray our costs a little bit. Some of our costs go to prizes, and we're changing the prize structure a little bit this year. in that we've had medals for the last couple of years. We're going to actually have things that kids like for different levels of achievement. So kids who travel 25 kilometers in the month of February this year will get a certain prize. Kids who travel 50 kilometers will get another prize. And then if they travel 75 or higher within the month, they'll get a third prize. We did that last year, but it was 30, 40, the last 2 years, actually. It was 30, 40, 50 for a bronze, silver, gold medal. We have found that the kids are really doing a lot. So we kind of upped it a little bit to make it more of a challenge for them, but also to keep our costs in line a little bit. And we also, the class achievement bins, it was a suggestion by a teacher, are actually full of play equipment that the kids can use on the yard. So again, it sort of dovetails nicely into our theme of getting kids active in February. Getting kids active as a former phys ed teacher is a passion of mine. It's a little upsetting sometimes when you see some of the levels of fitness of students, and COVID certainly didn't help that. So we really believe that Winterama is a way we can kind of embrace that with the students, get them out there doing fun things, enjoying the winter, and we hope this year bring some adults along. And that might be it.
That's great. Thanks, Dave. And just as with the last one, we'll refer your specific request to staff and we'll get a report back, I'm sure, in the near future, and we'll get you an answer to those requests. But in the meantime, are there questions or comments from members? Councillor Dubinsky.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and through you, whoever this would go to staff, perhaps the CAO, you're asking for relief on the rental of the Rotary Room.
Wow, we've booked a skate for February 19th, 9:30 to 11, I believe. Yep, 9:30 to 11 on February 19th. We were hoping we could get the Rotary Room.
Well, I'm kind of hoping you'll get the ice free too. So, I mean, when you think of what the Rotary clubs do in this community, they are certainly front and center when it comes back to giving back to the community and also to the kids who then learn to give back to the community or their own school. I will certainly support rent-free Rotary Room. And if the staff could, I don't know whether I'm in a position to do that, look at the ice rental for that one time only, and see if that couldn't be free as well, Mr. Mayor. So thank you.
Yeah, I think we can take those two things as the specific request back to staff. Further questions or comments from members? I don't see any, so I'll just say, Dave, thanks very much for your work. I know you do a huge amount of work on these projects and on all sorts of other projects in the community. So thanks to you and to your whole team at Southampton Rotary, Port Elgin Rotary for doing this year. And how many years has Winterama been going on?
I've been in it for 4 now, but it's 20 some. Rob Hughes would be the guy to ask.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know how far it's gone back. It started off with a lot of clubs. It's less clubs now, but it's still, we're kind of expanding back out into some of those areas. So
yeah, well, we're so glad it survived COVID and that you guys are sticking with it and expanding it and doing the work you're doing with it. It's great stuff. So thanks for all your work, and you'll be hearing back from us on your requests in short order. Okay.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor and Council.
Thank you, Dave. Okay, so that brings us to the end of our delegations, and we are on to item 8, reports of municipal officers and committees. And the first is a staff report, 8.2.1, insurance request for proposal results. And we have Danica Hendry, our accounting coordinator, is going to give this one. Danica.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and through you. We recently issued an RFP, or a request for proposal for insurance, and we received 2 submissions. One was the highest scoring proponent was Marsh Canada, which is our current insurance provider. And so this will provide continuity in our professional relationships with that we've established with the current provider, and this will mean a seamless transition for our insurance for the new year. There were also cost savings in issuing this RFP of 3.5%. So good news story. And the financial impact of this will be 516,000, which is already, or just over 516,000, which has already been included in the budget.
Okay, thank you very much. So there is a recommendation that council receive the insurance request for proposal results report for information. Are there questions or comments? The deputy mayor.
It's not a question. Can we just turn the mic off on the podium there? Thanks.
Maybe we can. Yes, we can. Good stuff. Are there further questions about this one? I don't see any. So just thank you, Danica, for your work on it. It's a great result and we much appreciate it. So with that, I'll ask all in favor of the recommendation. That's carried. Thank you. Okay, so now we're on to our second report, which is the 2024 budget and business plan, and we'll turn that over to the Director of Corporate Services.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This report provides details on the 2024 business plan. It's based on the outlined assumptions as deliberated with council on November 22nd and on the 29th. Before I dive into the details, I wanted to express my sincere thanks to all of those that were involved in making this first ever 10-year plan a reality. That includes residents who contributed to our online feedback forum, council for the hours they spent poring over the documents, and then the solid 2 days of deliberation that followed, and then to my fellow staff members for all of their efforts. The 2024 business plan focused on improving services to our residents. This included the new Aquatic and Wellness Center, which will launch in 2025. It has significant investments in our town's water and wastewater systems, and it included a suite of environmental initiatives, including an urban tree canopy plan, an urban park master plan, and the expansion of the successful food cycler program. As I mentioned before, the 2024 business plan for the first time is based on the 10-year asset management plan. And we also began the process of developing a long-term plan for operating reserves and debt, which we will expand further upon in 2025. In undergoing this process, we're beginning to develop an understanding of the long-term implications of the decisions that we make. And this, combined with understanding then the long-term needs and challenges that the community faces, is allowing council to better prioritize the needs through this comprehensive plan. During the November 29th meeting, council gave staff direction, and the result of that was a 2024 tax levy that will be set, if approved, at $23,295,469. And it'll result in an estimated combined blended tax rate of 4.9%. That represents an increase on a tax bill of about $207 on an average home, which is assessed at about $314,000. The lower tier municipal portion of the increase for that average household results in a $116 increase. In addition, we have a new rate-based future capital special levy, which represents $49 to the average household in 2024, and it's being introduced to support the town's 10-year capital plan. This plan is funding over $310 million of investment in our infrastructure between 2024 and 2032 to address the community's needs. The rate-based special levy will begin with a measured approach in 2024 at just under $500,000, and it will increase by that amount annually each year through 2032, at which time it'll stabilize at approximately $4.5 million annually. This measured approach was enabled by both the use of reserves and debt to soften the impact on our residents. In 2024, we'll be starting with a budgeted reserve balance of just under $47 million, and we'll see an almost $14 million reduction in reserves, taking us down to $33 million of reserves in order to help fund this infrastructure plan. Debt is the other piece that forms the funding through this plan. We have $42 million of debt in the Aquatic and Wellness Center. We have some large projects including the fire hall and operations center, the Southampton Town Hall, the library. And that will be adding a further approximately $20 million of debt. Water, wastewater, and landfill will have a further $60 million of debt. And then to help balance the levy requirement, because as I said, the special levy is incrementally increasing over the number of years. There's a further other projects that we'll have to pick off the list, and that'll be another $10 to $20 million of debt that we'll be adding. This will result in annual loan payments that will likely hit a high of around $13 million in order to support this debt, and that's in comparison to our annual repayment limit of $16 million. So debt forms a significant part of this plan and is being used to ensure that taxes stay affordable. The deliberations that we did on both the 22nd and 29th, all the changes that council had requested have been rolled into that plan. And as I said, we have hit the targets that you were anticipating. We're under 5% on the levy, and then the capital special levy is coming in at under $50 on an average household. The recommendations are before you for your consideration.
Thank you very much. So it's recommended that council approve the 2024 Town of Saugeen Shores business plan to include 1, the 2024 operating budget with net operating income of $10,145,756. 2, the 2024 capital expenses of $61,920,825 net of revenue. 3, the 2024 use of reserves of $13,774,296. And 4, the 2024 proceeds from debt of $38,773. And further, the council approved the Town of Saugeen Shores tax levy for 2024 to be set to $23,295,496. And the council established a rate-based future capital special levy of $496,322. The council approved the BIA levies for 2024 set at $33,000 for the Port Elgin BIA and $57,500 for the Southampton BIA. And the council passed the tax levy bylaw establishing the 2024 tax rates at the January 8th, 2024 council meeting. Questions or comments from members? The Deputy Mayor.
Thank you. And through you, I'd like to ask the director to just provide a little more information for the benefit of the public about the rate-based future capital special levy. I believe, people perhaps listening online, or if the press is picking this up, there's a 4.9% increase on taxes. That's pretty easy to understand. We have 2 other special levies already on the books, which are per property based, and those values are hopefully pretty understood. And now we've got this third one, which is in a different category because it's rate based. And you gave the example of $49 for the average property, and I believe the average MPAC assessed number when we look at our properties is about $340 some. So really important though for the public to understand that it's not across the board $49. It's based on assessment. And you mentioned about the period of time, and it will get bigger as we go. Perhaps I've already answered my own request to you to say a little more about it, but it's something new. And it does mean though that, somebody who has if they look at their property tax bill and they look at the assessed value, it could be above or below the $49 that you mentioned, but the expectation is that over 10 years, that figure will be changing, and it is not per property like the other 2 are. It is via the assessment, so it's a little bit different. If I missed a little highlight in there, maybe you could comment further, but that is something new that I think will be a little bit confusing until it's understood what the point of it is, and you described that a bit going forward. And certainly if somebody who takes the time to look through the business plan will see that there's an awful lot anticipated over that 10-year period that we got to pay for somehow. And so this is related to that. But if I've missed anything, I just think it's important to highlight that one a little bit more clearly for the benefit of people, so they don't, if they see that theirs is say, $20 or theirs is $149. There's an understanding of, you said, it's the average property $49 this year, but it will be changing over time. Thank you.
Thank you. You summed that up very well, Deputy Mayor. On an average home with an assessed value of $314,000, they would see then that $49 incremental cost on their tax bill in 2024. And one thing that's important to keep in mind is that's based on the MPAC assessment. And over the last few years, there's been a wide deviation between how much a house is truly worth and the MPAC assessment. So I just want to remind people in the community that don't think about what the price of your house is as that your neighbor has on the market. Perhaps it's look at your tax bill and see what the assessed value is there, because that's what is being used. And so it's based off of that times the rate. And so on that average home, it comes out to $49. And then because we're trying to phase this in over time and people know which direction it's going, that we're not trying to raise all this tax all at once, there will be an increase then in the following year. So then there'd be a further $49 on an average home as a result. And that would continue for the next number of years until we stabilize at a rate that at an amount of levy that will fully support the capital plan that is required to keep our infrastructure in good working order.
Okay, thank you, Jim. You might want to just move your mic a little closer to your, so that folks online can hear you real clearly. I see the Vice Deputy Mayor.
Yep, thank you, Mr. Mayor. And that levy, no doubt, it's $49 a year and incremental and on for a number of years. And Jim, when you talk about $310 million of capital projects over the next 10 years, that's a tremendous amount of projects, enormous amount of projects, and there are a lot of good things in there too to move our community forward. We're a growing community, as we know. We're going to 20,000 people by 2030, and so we're growing rapidly, and got to keep up with our infrastructure. We've had an infrastructure deficit, and this is catch up time. So it's not an easy pill to swallow, but I think there's a lot of great things in there for members of our community. That's going to benefit, a lot of people, no doubt. I was just wondering, Jim, the average household assessment, average household taxation. I don't know, you probably don't have that chart with you tonight, but in our business plan, our operations budget, the first meeting, I think we talked about where Saugeen Shores sits in terms of average household taxation. And Jim, is it fair to say that we're still in the bottom 30-40% for taxation in Saugeen Shores as compared to the other 440 municipalities across the province? How we I know that $49 and then there's 4.9% tax increase, so we're another $100 adds up. How are we doing?
I mean, we have been creeping up slowly over the last number of years as we increase the services in our community. That does play a role, but I would say that we are still in the bottom half at this point in time.
I guess the Director of Community Services, Kristen Strider, is with us tonight. Is she on the call?
Yep, she's here.
The question I have to Mr. Mayor to Strides is your director on the low priority items, things that have been removed. Kristen, could you comment on the parks? In the park section, Shipley Trail relocation, it's $8,333, 9-year average, mind you, but that has not been that's going to happen in 2024, is it not? The Shipley Trail reconstruction project.
Thank you for the question, and through you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, so we split the proposed project into two. So the Shipley Trail relocation has been estimated at $125,000, and it will occur in 2024. And then we assess the stairs connecting to Shipley Trail from the Ridge, the Blue Water subdivision, as a low priority, and estimated that at $75,000. So that's not included in the current business plan.
I recall that now. Thanks for that clarification. And parks, Lamont Sports Park, Washroom Canteen Building. 38,889, so it averages out to $370,000 roughly. I believe I know what that is, but the planning for the washroom facility is happening in 2024. And I understand we're going to build a washroom facility in 2025. So what does that represent again, that 38,889?
Thank you for the question, and through you, Mr. Mayor, you are correct. Planning for the washroom facility, again, similar to the Shipley Trail project as we split it in two, is that the washroom project at Lamont Sports Park was identified as a high need, planning in 2024 for approximately 75,000, and then construction to occur in 2025. And then the canteen portion of that project was moved to a low priority.
Perfect. And great. I just want to make sure that the washroom was still in there for 2025. So thanks for that clarification.
Okay, further questions or comments from members? Councillor Davinsky.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to our Director of Corporate Services. MPAC is frozen through a dictate of the province, so we are where we are. But if they're ever let go and have to reassess all the properties, that could be a big hit to a lot of people. My question is, how does the average home cost play with that? It's 314,000 now. I remember when it was 270 and down. Who changes that? Is that something we do or the province does so that it sort of stays in kilter?
As it relates to the assessment itself, that is the province through MPAC. MPAC is responsible for setting the assessment. And if there was a change in assessment tomorrow, we would take the levy that we presented here today. We would divide that levy by the new assessment. It would be a change in the tax rate, but the taxes that each home on average would be paying would be the same. Now, there would be some winners and losers in that because perhaps your home might go up a little more than my home did. And so there might be some that pay a little more, some that pay a little less, but on average, everyone would be paying the same. The average amount would not change. It's just a change in the rate offsets the increase in the assessment.
But through you, sir, the average right now is average home is 314,000.
Mhm.
When does that change, or would it change if MPAC was let go and reassessed all our properties?
If MPAC did the reassessment, then you would see that go up by a factor of 2 or 3. It'd be significant, but the end result, as I said, would be for most homes, it would be pretty close to what they paid before, because we would not be collecting extra money because of a change in assessment. It would just be completely, it's kind of a mathematical equation. It just gets changed in the rate so that the taxes we raise are the same amount of taxes.
Thank you very much. Thank you for the work of all staff on this budget. I was a little cool to the 10-year process going in, but having done it now and studied it, it's the route to go. There is no doubt about it. And it was well done. Thank you, sir. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Further comments from members? I'll just make a comment. Then I think first off, I'll pick up where Councillor Davinsky just left off. The 10-year plan is a really excellent approach. It allows us to, members of the public can now open up this business plan and see the projects stretching out that we're actually going to fund and when we're going to fund them and the plan we have to fund them. So projects that we've been talking about for a long time, people we've always said, oh, we'll get to that, whether it's Southampton Town Hall, for example, you think of the big projects, people in the community want to see us move forward. And we say, yes, we want to do that, but we had no plan to do it. We had no plan really financially to actually get it done. And now we do. Now we have a plan. We know when it's going to happen. We know what we need to do financially year after year in order to be able as a municipality to do those important projects that the public wants to see us do. And even better, the public can open a book here, go online and say, here's when it'll get done and here's what the plan looks like. So that's really outstanding stuff, I think, and puts us in a much stronger position than we've been in. It requires us to actually execute a plan and to actually raise some money. to get that done. And, so that's what this future capital special levy is about. I would wish we had a better name for it, frankly. I don't think when people look at the tax bill, they're going to really understand what a future capital special levy is. We should call it an building infrastructure levy or something, or maintaining our infrastructure. Like that's what it is. It's an infrastructure levy, and people will understand that we need to do that work. And at least you can explain, yes, it's going to cost more money, but it gets something done that we all need done. And then we have a plan to make sure your town keeps working, right? So anyway, I think that that's really positive. And I would just say too that it's a pretty sweeping budget in terms of the things that it gets done, right? Got aquatics and wellness center, like you raised, like you also mentioned, what water and wastewater investments. People are always concerned about our stewardship of those services, and this budget ensures that we are maintaining and ensuring those services continue to be there for the people of the community. Affordable housing is something you didn't mention. We doubled the municipal housing allowance in this budget, which is a really important item, which is going to help. Now we're going to double essentially the number of people we're helping with that. Which is important. The environmental priorities that you went through, planning initiatives like the like High Street, Southampton's High Street, getting that in the plan so that we can redo that and take the BIAs up on the work that they have done this year. The Cultural Heritage Master Plan, which I know is a key priority for members of this council and for several across the community, is in this plan. We've got also, our support for the Sparks Training Center is in this plan, $50,000 to ensure that they get a place to be in our community to do workforce and skilled trades development in our community, something which is absolutely critical. And smaller but really important things like making menstrual products available in all town facilities. I think that these are service level enhancements that, as I say, are sweeping, affect people across our community in all sorts of positive ways. And so it's a financial plan for the future, and it's a plan to make quality of life better for everybody in our community. So I'm really proud of this document, honestly. And I think staff have done tremendous work on it. I want to say thank you to all members of not only our senior leadership team, but all the way down. I know these documents take input from people up and down the organization to make them possible. And so we thank all staff across the municipality for the work that you've done to make this possible. So anyway, I certainly support the recommendation and hope council will as well. So with that, you've heard the recommendation, and I'll ask all in favor. And that is carried. Thank you very much. All right. So now we're on to communications and petitions for the committee of the whole, and we have 7 items there, and I'll ask members if you wish to speak to any of those items. Councillor Grace.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and through you, I have actually a couple of questions, and then I have excuse me, a resolution that I'd like to offer or support for. My first question is actually, I'll go in order. Number 2, and I apologize to the Vice Deputy Mayor for kind of putting you on the spot here. I'm just wondering on the Basra statement, it's talking about a year-to-date loss totaling 440,630. And is there another deeper story there that we should be aware of?
Because we've talked about it at a few meetings now, and it's really a bone of contention. But the price of the goods, the recovery costs for cardboard and metals and glass, and the returns that were brought this year through the Basra operations when they went out to tender, the prices for commodities just aren't there this year. They've really taken a huge hit, and Basra is in good financial condition with well over $1 million in reserves. We don't think that number is going to be quite as bad by December 31st. There was a late run in November, maybe part of October for commodities where prices have come up. So we regained some of that. Will be by the end of the year. So I think it won't look quite that bad, Councillor Grace. It's a great question. And believe me, on our board, we've talked about it because it's a big number. but the bonds are still in very good financial shape in terms of you say the reserve balance is very healthy. I think it's 1.5 million, I think. So they're in good shape. Some of that would be covered if necessary, but it won't look quite as bad by the end of the year.
Thank you. And this has been a trend for a couple of years. It's not a new thing. And I don't know, a follow-up question, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah, go ahead.
Have you heard any reports about the status of the provincial program?
In the 2025?
Right.
We keep asking for an update every meeting, and from Vince, the manager, we keep hearing no update, nothing new. We'll keep asking every meeting. But the word out is that by 2025, I mean, the change is coming to the way we handle recyclables. It's just that right now I can't give you any more firm answer because we haven't been able to get one, basically. But we do keep asking in every meeting, and I will continue to do that. And if there's anything new, I'll bring it to council. But still on course for major changes by 2025, how we handle recyclables. And where Bosra is heading, I can't crystal ball that with that organization. I'm not sure. I hope Bosra is around 2025, but we don't know yet, right? It'll all come out in 2024. It will be a lot clearer by probably the second quarter.
Okay, carry on, Councillor Grace.
Yes, my next item is the third item, which is to move that our council supports the town of Goderic's resolution on intimate partner violence. And this comes, I think, at an opportune time, coinciding with the anniversary last week of the Montreal massacre in 1989 of 14 women who were brutally murdered in their classroom because they were women. I know a number of our council members and staff attended the vigil that was sponsored by the CFUW. But this resolution goes farther and brings this up to our current time, which unfortunately we haven't seen progress. One would have hoped for that. And so what this resolution is asking is to petition the provincial government and other associations of government to bring legislation that is specifically addressing family and domestic violence, because Ontario to date has not implemented this type of legislation. So if we did support this resolution, that's what we would be sending to the provincial government to ask them to do.
Okay, so it's moved by Councillor Grace that council support the correspondence from the town of Godrich and declare intimate partner violence an epidemic. Is there a seconder? That's seconded by Councillor Stack. Is there any discussion? I'll just comment. I think it's an excellent resolution. Appreciate you making the motion, Councillor Grace, and we certainly support those messages to the province. I think it's an important message to send. So I'll ask all in favor. And that's carried. Thank you. Okay, further comments on any of these items? Oh, sorry, Councillor. Oh, do you have another one? Councillor Grace.
Sorry, I just had one more.
Sorry.
And that is on the next item from South Bruce, based on the resolution for, related to the Ontario Association of Sewage Industry Services, which was a pretty comprehensive presentation. And I guess it reminded me that I don't have much knowledge of that kind of the proper disposal of sewage. I mean, other than our own sewage treatment plants, but hauling sewage. And I just wondered what is our municipality's oversight role in that proper disposal of sewage.
what we could do is, the County of Bruce received this correspondence from South Bruce as well. And the Bruce County Council requested a delegation from the Ontario Association of Sewage Industry Services to come to Bruce County and sort of explain this and have a conversation about it. So I wonder if that's something we could do as well. They're clearly interested in advocating on this. So maybe what we could do, Councillor Grace, if it's agreeable, is ask staff to reach out to the folks who drafted this letter and ask them to come to council and speak to us about it. And then we could have a specific conversation on that subject. Is that okay?
That sounds great. Thank you.
Okay, so council staff, you can take that. Good. Okay, is there further anything else on these items of correspondence? I don't see anything, so we'll move on then. That brings us to the end of the committee of the whole agenda. So we'll have statements by members and the deputy mayor.
Thank you, and through you, Councillor Grace and I participated in the Santa Claus Parade in Southampton. It was a great 2-block walk and just enough snow to make it very magical on the street, extremely well attended, much like the Port Elgin one a week earlier. I'd also like to just highlight the park planning process that's going on. There were a couple of in-person sessions, and there is an opportunity online now for the members of the community to contribute and comment on the concepts that were presented. The 3 parks in question are North Shore Park at the shore in Port Elgin, Helliwell in Southampton where the soccer field is, and Jubilee Park, which is right behind the water tower. Very important that people take a look. Lots of good ideas, and certainly the 2 in-person sessions were attended by people who had comments, and they certainly were interested in what the concepts were that were presented, but there were also a lot of other ideas presented too. So I look forward to that process playing out. Again, it's Jubilee, Halliwell, and North Shore Park, and I'm not too sure when the deadline is for comments, but go online, you can find it on the town website. I also want to highlight that members of council have anteed up a little bit of funds to have a family skating time on the Saturday before Christmas. And also through the efforts of Councillor Halpin, we've also sponsored a skating time too, which I believe is January do you remember the date?
No, I don't, but in Port Elgin, we sponsored a swim.
Oh, I meant swim.
Yes.
That's what I meant, swim.
Yes.
You don't remember the date? I think it's January 4th, but certainly watch for some publicity. And those are 2 opportunities for families to go out, have a skate, have a swim. They're on different days. So something to do over the holidays. Thank you.
Thank you, the Vice Deputy Mayor.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I also attended those 2 parks meetings, the open houses and the Jubilee Park, Hellwell, and North Shore Park that our Deputy Mayor talked about. And about 40 people, I think, attended each meeting, and were very well attended. And I just, it's the same company that did, Lamont Sports Park Phase 1 and 2. And I thought they did a really, really good job, and with providing options for what those parks could look like in the future. And I think they served their purpose. They gave options, and now it's up to the public. Like, make your comments. And I'm not sure what the deadline date is either. I can't remember. I think it's the end of this week or next week. Not sure, but make your comments, because this is your opportunity to take a look at how we're going to reshape Jubilee Park and Halliwell and North Shore Park. So this is your time. This is your opportunity, to step forward. And I just want to commend Councillor Grace. I attended the Cottage Roads meeting on last Thursday night, I think it was, or Wednesday night. And again, about 30-40 people showed up. And I think there was an equal number in the afternoon showed up in Southampton. Councillor Grace would probably want to talk to it. But, I've had some comments from people, well, they missed this road and they missed that road and they missed this road and missed that road. And that's fine. The consultants did their best, and that's good. I mean, the public caught that. That was the purpose of those meetings, is to make comments. And so the roads that were missed have been added in, will be added in. So I think it served its purpose. you know, with the Cottage Roads report, I think once it's all said and done, when we go to repave a road, you know, there's 4 or 5 options available now to us that could be made available. I didn't mean to steal your thunder there, Cheryl, but I just think I wanted to commend you actually for bringing that report forward, because I think it's a good thing. And you know, the people that are anxious out there about the cottage roads and being reconstructed to 10 foot wider and sidewalks and curbs and gutters, just, you know, the right thing will be done. I trust our staff and this council to make the right decisions when our roads are you know, are redone, whether it's next year, 5 years from now. So, you know, anyways, those meetings were very well attended, and I wanted to commend staff because they were very well organized. I thought they were very well organized and very well presented. So, you know, I just want to pass on my accolades there.
Thank you. Councillor Mayette.
Thank you, Mr. Roy. Having a whole lot to report on, but I will say that I was successful in passing over the reins of the Lake Huron Fishing Club, the president's job, to a new, younger individual. After 3 years as the president, I was ready to turn it over, and so Cody Buchanan is the new president. And just briefly on that front, population of Saugeen Shores has gone up by about 10,000 this week. Rainbow trout, that is. We brought 10,000 up from the Kincardine hatchery, where we'll be wintering them here in Port Elgin and releasing them in the spring. And we do have some Sparks Training Center news, but I'll let Councillor help and fill you in on that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Duhaime.
No new business to report, Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Davinsky.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Everyone's spoken of the cottage streets and the future of the parks and so on. Well, I took part in the virtual meeting for the cottage streets this past Wednesday. It was it was scheduled to be a 1-hour meeting. We signed off after 2 hours because there is so much interest in this, and I can only say to the public, and I think the Vice Deputy Mayor has alluded to it as well, and that is, if you have an opinion, use it. You miss those meetings, that's okay. There are surveys on the town's website, and you can still get in your opinion. A lot of people did, and there was a lot to be learned. So thank you for that. Nothing to report otherwise. Oh yeah, the Winterhawks. The Winterhawks.
Use the voice now, John.
Yeah, the Winterhawks. They're on the road still, and they will be back for a home game on December 22nd. That's Friday. I think that's the last day of school too, if not. So something to celebrate. Come out and watch the game. Bring the whole family. 8:30 is the time, and I may be a little wrong at the time. We may have changed the time on that one, but I'll get back to you on that. And the Georgian Bay Apple Kings are in town. Brand new team. And we hope you can join us. You know, it's just before Christmas. You never know who might show up on skates. Thank you.
Very good. Councillor Grace.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I wanted to also speak a little bit about the Santa Claus parades. I wasn't able to attend the one in Port Elgin, but I wanted to thank everybody in our community who works on the, who organizes these parades, who contributes to them with your work, the amount of time you spend on those floats and displays. And there were a lot of people, and people really look forward to it. It's an important event. They are important events, and thank you for all your work on that. With regard to the Cottage Street study, just wanted to say thank you to everybody who participated, and thank you to our staff, and thank you to our consultants who were, I thought, did a great job of listening and being open to suggestions. The deadline for comment is December 22nd, and there's a site on our website for that, a link. And then I did speak about this already, but I just wanted to thank the CFUW Southport for organizing the annual vigil to commemorate the École Polytechnique tragedy that I spoke about earlier. Every year, the CFUW organizes this event. It was very well attended by the public this year, and there were two excellent speakers. Jessica St. Peter, who is the house manager of the women's shelter that's on the Saugeen First Nation, but actually serves all of Bruce Grey, and Sergeant Chantel Primo, who is a Saugeen Shores police officer. And both of them spoke very well and very effectively. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Halpin.
Thank you, Mayor, and through you. The skate is December 23rd at 2:30 to 4, and the swim is January 4th from 1 to 2 p.m. at the pool. So we got that. Just a quick report on Spark. We finished our first night school, and I want to say it was a great success. We had opportunities for all kinds of people, starting right with high school kids who have not had a chance to do welding in their own school because of a lack of welding teachers. So Spark stepped in and gave those kids a chance to try their hand at welding. Some of the people that came through the group would include new Canadians, some Ukrainians who are here, and some of them have had a chance to improve their job situation with that and meeting our much needed demand for skilled laborers. Women from construction were making up part of our cohort. We welcome people from Nawash, Saugeen First Nation, and throughout the community. And I really feel it was a qualified success. And I just look forward to what we can do going on. So really pleased for it, and hats off to our founding director here, Mr. Mayette and Kenny Kilday. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Stack.
Thank you. Just a quick thought about how we come on the season. I think in our regular council, we'll be reflecting on some great work that the fire department has done for collecting food for the food bank. But I just remind council and staff and our community that if they have the opportunity to do so, consider donating to our local food banks. I think one thing I've learned over the last several months, including but not limited to attending the accessible and affordable housing seminar a few weeks ago, is that there are folks in the community really struggling, and that will be made more acute over the holiday season. So just reflecting on some of the opportunities that I have and what other folks may not, if we have an opportunity to donate, I encourage everyone to do so. I know I'm going to do so before Christmas, and I'm even going to try and poke my partner's children to donate a bit of money to reflect some of the generosity we've given to them over the years. Thanks.
Very good. Well, thanks for that. Councillor Davinsky, do you have something to add?
Yes, thank you. I found the time. Friday, December 22nd for the Winterhawks game is 7:30 p.m. Normally we start at 8:30, but we're starting an hour early. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah, thank you all. And I guess two things. I just to follow up on Councillor Grace's comment about the vigil, I note that the president of CFUW Southport, Odette Bartnicki, is in the room tonight. So I think I just wanted to thank her since she's here directly for her work on that and CFUW's work. We really do appreciate your work every year on bringing attention to intermittent partner violence and violence against women. And it's a shame that we have to continue to have that event, but we will continue to have it for as long as we need to and bring attention to that important issue. But anyway, thank you for your work. And today I attended the Southwestern Ontario Isotope Coalition, a meeting of regional partners who are interested in advancing our region, Southwestern Ontario, as a place to develop the isotope business, both the production, which is already happening, and potentially the manufacture of medical isotopes. And the town of Saugeen Shores is a partner in that enterprise, and we're eager to work with all of our partners there, and hopefully pursue the goal of seeing our region develop into a center world. I think a center for the world industry when it comes to isotopes. So excited about that. And yeah, I think everything else I have has been covered. So we'll look for a motion to adjourn. Davinsky and Stack, and all in favor. The committee stands adjourned and council will convene at 8:05. Okay, so we'll reconvene here and call to order this regular council meeting. And the second item on the agenda is disclosure of pecuniary interest. Ask any member if you have one of those to declare at this time. Seeing none, of course, you can do that anytime if you need to. We have no additions, deletions, or amendments, so we're on to adoption of minutes, 3 sets of minutes there. And there's a resolution that council adopt the minutes of the regular council meetings of November 20th and November 27th, 2023, and note and file the minutes of the committee of the whole meeting of November 27th, 2023, as presented. Is there a mover and seconder? The Vice Deputy Mayor and Councillor Halpin. Questions or comments to any of those sets of minutes? Seeing none, all in favor? That is carried. So we have no public meeting this evening. We're on to close to public. And council is going to move into close to public session to discuss various matters in accordance with Municipal Act, including a request to extend reconciliation park timeline, legal opinion concerning negotiations with an identifiable individual, legal opinion on encroachment agreement, and request for the sale of town-owned property. And there is a resolution. The council move into a closed public session in accordance with Municipal Act 2001, Section 2392 as follows. B, personal matters about an identifiable individual, including municipal or local board employees. C, a proposal or proposed or pending acquisition or disposition of land by the municipality or local board. F, advice that is subject to solicitor-client privilege, including communications necessary for that purpose. And K, a position, plan, procedure, criteria, or instruction to be applied to any negotiations carried on or to be carried on by or on behalf of the municipality or local board. Is there a mover and seconder? Moved by the Deputy Mayor, seconded by Councillor Duhaime. All in favor? That is carried. So council's will move into closed session, and we will move to the committee room, and those online will go to their closed link. Thank you. Okay, well, we have a resolution that council arise from the close to public session and resume the regular council meeting. Is there a mover and seconder? Moved by the deputy mayor, second by the vice deputy mayor. All in favor? That is carried. So I can report that council in closed session passed the minutes of the closed public session on November 27th, 2023, and discussed a request to extend Reconciliation Park timeline and gave direction to staff on that. Gave direction to staff on a legal opinion concerning negotiations with identifiable individual, and gave direction to staff on a request for sale of town-owned property. In the closed public meeting, council received a legal opinion relative to an encroachment agreement. As a result of those discussions, council has business arising from the closed session. The following recommendation was provided for council consideration, and it is resolved that council exercise its right pursuant to paragraph 9 and terminate the encroachment acknowledgement and agreement dated February 1, 1993, including any amendments or assignments thereto, with 462783 Ontario Limited operating as Lakeshore Recreation and 1117636 Ontario Limited operating as Lakeshore Recreation. That council provide the necessary notice of termination to 462783 Ontario Limited operating as Lakeshore Recreation and 1117636 Ontario Limited operating as Lakeshore Recreation. Is there a mover and seconder for this resolution? Moved by Mayette, seconded by Grace. Questions or comments? Seeing none, all in favor? That is carried. Thank you. So now we're on to item 8, which is, report of the Committee of the Whole. And there is a recommendation. First off, does anybody want to have any of these items considered individually before I read all this? Councillor Stack?
Sorry, can we consider item 1 separately?
Yes, we can. Any other requests for this? I don't see any, so we'll, sorry, Councillor Halpin. Turn your mic on, Councillor Halpin.
I'm sorry. Does 6 refer to our discussions in?
No, not this evening. That's the item relating to the Southampton sewage treatment plant.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, so I'll read the recommendation. We'll do 2 through 6 first, and then we'll come back to 1. So the resolution is that council receive the Saugeen Shores People Strategy Report for information, that council receive the third quarter 2023 variance to budget report for information, that council receive the residential tenant water billing and outstanding water balances for information, that council adopt the purchasing and procurement policy bylaw and repeal bylaw 49/2022, and 6, that council adopt a bylaw to authorize the stopping up and closing of the lane identified, and you can see there all of the PIN numbers, et cetera, et cetera. I won't read them, but they're there for your information. So I'll ask for a mover and seconder for that resolution. Moved by Stack, seconded by Halpin. Questions or comments? Seeing none, all in favor? That is carried. And the second resolution is that council receive the Invest Saugeen Shores Business Support Center report for information. Is there a mover and seconder? Moved by Mayette, seconded by Davinsky. Questions or comments? Seeing none, then all in favor? And opposed? That's carried. Okay. So now we're on to item 2, Committee of the Whole report regarding newspaper publication amendment resolution. And there was a recommendation or a resolution that council endorsed, the resolution from the Township of McKellar concerning the newspaper publication amendment, and that a copy of this resolution be forwarded to the Minister of Municipal Affairs and Housing, MPP Lisa Thompson, the Association of Municipalities of Ontario, and the President of the Metroland Media Group. Is there a mover and seconder? Moved by the Deputy Mayor, seconded by Councillor Grace. Any questions or comments? Councillor Mayette.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Mayor, if we pass this on to the Minister of Municipal Affairs and they do make the change that removes the requirement for the town to publish notices in the newspaper, that doesn't preclude us from still publishing notices in the newspaper, because if you stop publishing things in the newspaper, you're just hurrying up the demise of your newspaper, right?
I turn that over to the clerk.
Thank you. Through you, Mayor Charbonneau. Certainly, council can have policies or directions to staff to continue publishing in newspapers. It's not that we're not allowed to. It's not that this is more to the effect of we're not required to
Right.
in certain
Okay.
instances. Yeah.
Okay, we'll do that at the time then. Thank you.
Thank you. Any, Councillor Grace?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I guess I misunderstood this when I was reading it. I thought that the issue was to expand the definition of newspaper to include digital publications. Because in some communities where paper newspapers are going away, this would permit publication of items to be recognized in digital publications.
Yeah, so the now therefore statement in this resolution from McKellar is that Council of the Corporation of McKellar hereby requests the provincial government to make an amendment to the Legislation Act 2006 to include digital publications as an acceptable means of publication and notice requirements for provincial acts and regulations. So I would say yes, it's the inclusion of digital publications as an acceptable means in addition to all other types of publication. Okay, are there further questions or comments? I don't see any, so I'll ask all in favor. That's carried. Thank you. All right, so now we're on to item 9, report of municipal officers and committees. The first one is a striking committee report on the Environmental Ad Hoc Committee terms of reference. There's a resolution that council approved the Environmental Ad Hoc Committee terms of reference. Is there a mover and seconder? The Deputy Mayor, Councillor Halpin. Discussion, questions, comments? Seeing none, then all in favor? That is carried. Second report is a staff report on delegation of authorization, Ontario Nuclear Emergency Management Program agreement, and there's a resolution that council adopt a bylaw to authorize the fire chief, CEMC, or designate to execute an agreement with the Emergency Management Ontario specific to the Nuclear Transfer Payment Program and the Nuclear Emergency Management Program agreement. Is there a mover and seconder? Moved by the Deputy Mayor, seconded by Councillor Davinsky. Any questions or comments? Seeing none, then all in favor? It's carried. And the third one is a staff report on 2024 fees and charges. And there's a resolution that council adopt the 2024 fees and charges bylaw and repeal bylaw 100/2022. Is there a mover and seconder? Moved by Halpin, seconded by Mayette. Questions or comments? Seeing none, then all in favor? That is carried. All right, so now we're on to bylaws. There are 4 bylaws there. Anybody want to have any of those considered individually at this time? Seeing none, then I'll read the resolution. The resolution is that bylaws 107/2023, 108/2023, 109/2023, and 110/2023 are hereby read a first, second, and third time and finally passed and sealed this 11th day of December 2023. Is there a mover and seconder? Moved by Davinsky, seconded by Duhaime. Is there questions or comments? Seeing none, then all in favor? That is carried. And then we're on to the confirmatory bylaw, and it's resolved that bylaw 111/2023, being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of the Council of the Town of Saugeen Shores, is hereby read a first, second, and third time and finally passed and sealed this 11th day of December 2023. Is there a mover and seconder? Moved by the Vice Deputy Mayor, seconded by Councillor Grace. All in favor? That is carried. And finally, we have a resolution that this regular council meeting of December 11th, 2023 hereby adjourns at 9:28 p.m. Mover and seconder. Stack and Grace, all in favor. Council stands adjourned. Have a good evening, everybody.